Hey, this is your girl, Jay Monique.
And this is Sarah, aka Chulita Sarita.
And make sure you listen to us on ARM Radio Global.
This one's explosive.
The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
To All You Can Eat. It's the podcast about deliciousness, and I am your host, Rob Rosenthal, coming to you live from Miami Beach, Florida, episode 132. And this episode is called Rob Does Dubai, because I just returned from my third trip to the Middle East, to Dubai, and I want to tell you about the place because it's fascinating and it's far away, and so I get the sense that people kind of have, of course I've heard about Dubai and I've heard interesting things about Dubai, but having now been there multiple occasions, this, as I mentioned, was my third time there, I can give you some sense of what the place is like, and then, you can, I'm all about recommending things, right? So I'm going to tell you what I discovered there, what my insights were, what my recommendations are, if you wanted to make the journey. So let's start with that. Let's just start with, you're going over to the Middle East, and if you're coming from the United States, it's a long way to go. I believe that United just announced within the last couple of weeks that they were flying. It was the first American airline to fly nonstop. I believe you can also take Emirates Air, which is a phenomenally good airline. But let's the point that I wanted to make is on the distance. United is going to fly Newark to Dubai direct, let's say 13 and a half hours. All right. So the first thing you need to know is that it's over on the other side of the world. It's 13 hours, 13, 14 hours. That's from the East Coast, obviously. Well, I shouldn't say obviously, but it is longer if you end up going from further west in the United States. I'm going to tell you about Dubai that I think it's kind of fascinating. It's fascinating because when you think of Dubai, or at least when I thought of it, I thought, well, this is a place that's been, Middle East basically has been early, settled, millennia ago, 6,000, people were, there were human inhabitants there like 6,000, however many years ago. I'm no historian, I just think old, basically, is where I'm coming from here. And yet, this is one of the most modern cities you'll see in the world right now. And that's kind of where the interesting juxtaposition, contrast begins. Because far away over there in the Middle East is the United Arab Emirates. There are 7 of these Emirates, one of which is Dubai. You might have also heard of Abu Dhabi, which is another one, and the capital. And then there's a few others I've even visited myself. Ras Al Khaimah, one of the 7, and Abu Dhabi, one of the 7, and Dubai being kind of the most modern metropolis. I am looking at a picture of Dubai in right around the 1950s. And it's a pile of sand. I mean, it's tents, and it's tent city, and it's sand. There was no electricity in the 1950s. That came a little bit later. And yet now, and the the population was probably 20,000 people. Now you're looking at a city of over 3 million people, and skyscrapers, including the tallest building in the world, everywhere that you look. The last time I was there, I remember thinking they called it the crane capital of the world because there's so much building going on. This place has exploded as a city in the last, from the 60s till now. And it's unique in a number of ways, not the least of which is that it is built in the desert, on the sand, and yet at the same time, you're on the water. You're literally on the Iberian Peninsula. So just like right off the top, it's kind of like, it's old, it's new, it's desert, it's water. It's not like a lot of other places. The architecture, I don't have to tell you. Well, I am going to tell you. It's incredibly modern, including, as I mentioned, the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. The lifestyle over there is pretty luxurious, especially when it comes to kind of like tourism. I mean, there are 47 five-star hotels. There's 40 four-star hotels. I've stayed at a couple incredible resorts. What makes a resort incredible? What makes a resort incredible is luxury, service, food, amenities, details. I mean, I've stayed at some incredible places over in Dubai. You know, in terms of when you go, though, if you were going to go, you should know that it's freaking hot. Like, I was only there, a week ago, so let's say we're talking about late April, early May. You're looking at temperatures that are going to hit, high 80s, 90, and it's desert. It's a desert climate, hot, the humid summers, mild winters. I mean, the best time to visit is, November through March, because the weather is going to be a little cooler. I once showed up there, because it was business related. I once showed up in Dubai on August, the last day of August leading into Labor Day. So 111 degrees, 111, 110, 112, that was the norm. I thought I would go jump into the sea over there. And the sea was 98 degrees, so that wasn't exactly refreshing. Anyway, far away, modern, and hot, and luxurious. I mean, there is a display of wealth that I don't believe that I've seen anywhere else in the world. You see it in certainly in the cars that are parked in the lots of the fancy kind of hotels and restaurants. There is a certain, there's a certain amount of wealth, of course, that shows up as, or it doesn't show up. I mean, it's kind of quiet, and then you have the wealth that's ostentatious, and you will certainly see that there. To the extent that, there are people who have said something, and I'm not going to say that I think I agree, but there are people who think of it, as kind of like Vegas-like in that regard, that that you're capable of seeing a lot of wealth floating around. Dubai is what I would call in the middle of the other side of the world. And so as a result of that, we'll talk a little bit more about that because it's significant. And it's significant because when you contemplate going to Dubai, one of the things that you need to consider is whether or not, you're going there for Dubai, or whether or not you use it as a jumping off point to a whole lot of other places that you can visit from there. For example, you might say, hey, I got a couple of weeks, I'm going to go to Dubai, and then I'm going to spend some time in the Seychelles. Or you might even contemplate, since you're in Dubai, taking a 4-hour flight and ending up in the Maldives, which I have done once before and reported on this very podcast. So somewhere, if you want to know about the Maldives, you can look into the archives of All You Can Eat. You will find my podcast on the Maldives, one of the most incredible places that I've ever been. Not like any other place, like 1,100. It's made up of 1,100 little islands, each one of which housing its own kind of ultra luxurious resort. But back to Dubai, over far away on the other side. But I look at it as kind of like almost a, what's the word people like to use? It's a window. It's a gateway. That's the better word. It's a gateway to the other side of the world. And the culture you'll find in Dubai is, well, many cultures. It's super multicultural. So not only is it a mix of kind of tradition and modern, it also, because of where it's situated, brings in and attracts people from the Middle East and from Russia, and from Africa, and from Asia. So you know the mix there is serious. And you know there's a number of cities in the world that are sitting at a point geographically where they are kind of in the middle of a whole lot of other places. Like as an example, I think of Singapore. You know, there's 15 or 20, you know, different or 30 different, you know, populations that, immigrant populations that have immigrated to the city. Well, you know, Dubai is like that too. I mean, you do find people basically from all over the place. And when I say all over the place, I don't mean there aren't as many people from, you know, from North America. But there are people from Europe, as I said, Africa, certainly all over the Arab countries, and even a couple here and there that I met from, you know, like Brazil. So you do have a couple of the South Americans there. The attractions are, you know, I was going to say the attractions are many, but I would say that they're not many. There's not as many attractions as, like what I went, the last time I went was, I want to say 2021 for the World's Fair, which was fascinating and great in its own way. And certainly that was an attraction worth visiting because, you know, it's the World's Fair. But when I think of when I think of Dubai now, it is home to some famous attractions. You do have the Burj Khalifa, tallest building in the world. And I'm going to tell you right now, in case I don't get to it later, you know, one of the things you do when you go to Dubai is you take that elevator up. You have to make a reservation. You take the elevator up to the top of the Burj Khalifa. You're at the height of Burj Khalifa. You're at the highest point of any building in the whole world. You have some cocktails and you look out and you go, it's pretty amazing. Another attraction is going to be the Dubai Mall, believe it or not. Loaded with, I mean, it's one thing to be loaded with stores from all over the world. A lot of malls can do that. This particular mall has an indoor skiing facility. You can go skiing in your 100-degree heat in Dubai, in the Dubai Mall. And one of the things that you can also do out there, and you have to do, in fact, is you can go take a desert safari, and you can ride on a camel, which you should do. And you can enjoy all different types of water sports and theme parks. I mean, they got them. They got like aqua parks. When it comes to so there are plenty of things to do. And I would say also, you know, when it comes to, and one of the things I do, obviously, I mean, this is all you can eat. One of the things I do is I take advantage of the food scene there. And again, the multiculturality of it makes the food scene really worthy, which is to say that you're going to have some old Middle Eastern food, and you're going to have some Lebanese food, and then you're going to find some, you're going to find food from an Indian food, and then there's, you know, and there's going to be some Thai food. This is a very, very, very diverse food scene. And one of the things that's happened in the explosion of Dubai is an international food fair situation as well. So all of the world's famous restaurants and celebrity chefs all now have branches in Dubai, right? So you can go to, the Nobu place, the Gordon Ramsay place, you name a super serious, international, world-famous chef, and they've got a place here in Dubai. And on top of that, like I said, you're going to be having Middle Eastern food, and you're going to be having Lebanese food, Turkish food, etc., and it's good, man. It's delicious. So they got a serious food scene going over here. Like you could literally, you like I said, you can have a lot of variety, and that doesn't even take into account that a couple of the hotels, and I happen to have been fortunate enough to have been at two of them. A couple of the hotels are famous for their breakfasts or their brunches or their lunches or whatever you want to call it. They do buffets. Now, buffets are inherently, anytime, any place, hit or miss. But I'll tell you what, when you have 140 or 150 different stations, it's hard not to find some hits. And I'm going to tell you that one of the things, like, I stayed at a hotel here, a resort hotel. I stayed at a couple of places. One of them was a resort hotel. And it's Atlantis, the Royal. Now, Atlantis, you may know from properties in other places, like in the Bahamas. And here in Dubai, Atlantis, the Royal, is a 5-star super luxury resort that has so much on the water, that has so much going on, so much going for it, that the truth of the matter is you could get lazy and not leave. Shame though that may be, you actually don't have to leave the grounds, because there are going to be a half a dozen restaurants. Should we go to the Jose Andres restaurant, or do we try the other one? And you're on the water, and then there's multiple pools, and then there's a rooftop bar, but the standout culinary experience from my perspective. I mean, they have a Milos, a very expensive. You guys might have heard of Milos. Started over in Canada, I think Montreal, moved into New York. Milos, very high end, very expensive. Seafood and fish, Greek, Mediterranean, delicious. So you got that there. You have your Jose Andres, as I mentioned. If you want to go in and have beautiful Spanish food and paella, that looks good. But for me, the standout experience here was the buffet, available every day, from 7 in the morning till, I want to say, noontime. So that's 5 hours, and I didn't count. But when I say 140 stations, I'm being conservative about it, because there are the guys in the back doing baking the what are those breads there? Those flat, Turkish breads with za'atar on them and lamb on the others. And then there's the guys doing the congee and the Asian food, where you can have the noodle soup. And then there are people doing the dumplings. And then from there's a whole station where all they have is all the different salmons that you want. And then, of course, there's somebody else making omelet. And then you go to another place where you're going to have the eggs Benedict. And then you go to another station where they're doing the steamed dumplings and shumai. And then you go to another station that has prosciutto and all the crudos and all the different hams from around the world. And then there's another station that has the cheeses. And then there's there's the station that has the salad and the salad bar and every possible ingredient you could think of. Or maybe you want to make your own, juice. And it goes on and on. And I'm leaving out most of it or a lot of it. Oh, right, the dessert bar, and then the bread bar, and then the ice cream bar, and then the espresso bar. I mean, Look, I've been eating in a lot of places for a very long time. I looked forward to getting up in the morning and getting down there and figuring out what I was going to have that day. And for me, it was different every single day. I like congee. That's porridge that's made of rice. And you top it with interesting things, some scallions or some peanuts or some sesame oil or some Szechuan hot spot. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I love that. And then there's somebody else that's, like I said, that's doing some eggs and doing it in different ways. And then there's Arabic bread that you want to have. And then one day I came down and I'm like, I'm really in the mood for this chicken dish that they make. It's Hainanese. It's a province in China, where they basically steam the white meat breast of chicken, but man, they're serving it with like these sauces, ginger and scallion and soy and sesame, and then a little bit of rice on the side with a different type of, and there's some braised bok choy. I could spend, I believe, the entire hour of this podcast describing what I ate, but suffice it to say, and drank, What are you squeezing fresh today? Well, we have some fresh watermelon juice. Great, I'll have some of that. I could spend the entire. Oh wait, you have yogurt? Yeah, I'll have some yogurt, and let's do that with some fresh fruit, and there's some fresh granola. I mean, anything. If you've had it anywhere, anytime, and that includes, by the way, the Indian. I mean, just one day, you just feel like having the Indian breakfast. I think that my excitement here is obvious. And the answer is that there's a lot of different food from a lot of different parts of the world. And if you do end up in one of the luxury resorts, whether it be the Atlantis, the Royal, whether it be the Jumeirah over in the Palm, or the Jumeirah Madinat, which has its, they're going to do well on the food. Getting around Dubai, we used Uber. You want to take a regular taxi, you want to rent a car, you want to find other ways to get around. I think what I would say about the transportation is I found Uber to be perfectly good and efficient and air-conditioned, which is super important. Although I know they have I think the thing you want to know about Dubai, by the way, in terms of infrastructure, is it's very nicely developed. They have good infrastructure over there. Meaning that you can get around probably on the subway system or on the bus system. I'm not, go ahead if that's what it is that you want to do. I want to get somewhere quickly. I want it to be air conditioning. I don't want to learn another language or another transportation system. This far from home, I don't blame people who do, but on a 5-day vacation, I'm not taking the subway or whatever it is that if they even have it. My point, more importantly, is that you can get around that city without great difficulty if you should decide to get up and leave the hotel. And it's a safe city. Dubai is a safe city for tourists. The crime rate is low. Obviously, if you show up in old Dubai and it's late at night and, you want to be careful like you do anywhere else in the world. But generally speaking, a safe city. A super cosmopolitan city. But, it's Muslim. You dress modestly, especially if you're going to end up visiting a mosque, which I'm going to tell you should. Over in Abu Dhabi, that's going to be worth the ride up there. I forget how long it took us, an hour or two, whatever it was. The mosque is unbelievable. It's tremendous. It's spotless. It's clean. People are praying. But when you go, you're going to cover your shoulders. You're going to cover your knee. You're not going in with, you're not going in with shorts and a midriff. Okay, it's a cosmopolitan, which is to say, but you dress with respect. So, it's not provocative, your dress. Alcohol. What about alcohol? Well, it's a Muslim country, and on the other hand, it's not hard getting alcohol because many restaurants have what they call licensed, and the hotels obviously are licensed. But don't be drinking in public because that's not what you do. And while the official language over in Dubai is Arabic, obviously English is pretty much spoken, especially in any place where there's going to be, a tourist. They use, the currency is a dirham, dirham, the dirham. When these days, basically, you can tap your phone or your credit card. It's not like you need to have cash. I like having cash. I don't like not having cash. Even if you want to give a tip to a bellman, not even, but especially, you want to hand somebody, a couple of dirham. The exchange rate, you're going to... it was about a quarter, right? So, which direction was it a quarter? If it was 10 dirham, it would be like $2.50, right? 100 dirham is $25, so that was easy. But I use an app on the phone. It's called XE Currency. You just push in a number and it tells you how much it's costing you. So that's kind of the basic layout of the place, and interesting. Now, let me give you just a little bit deeper perspective. I mentioned before that they only began to modernize in like the 60s and 70s when they started to discover oil. And when you got that much oil and that much money, things happen. But you got to really give them credit because in a short period of time, man, they built a metropolis. Back in those days, I mentioned there were 20,000 people in the 50s and 60s over there. And now you're looking at 3.3 million people. Electricity only came to this place in the late 50s and the late 60s. So, you know, everything that you get in here is on the super modern. I mentioned to you also that of the things that you do, you know, you're going to find yourself a nice, if you should go, you're going to find yourself a nice resort. I mentioned the two, certainly, that I can tell you that I stayed at, the Atlantis, the Royal. And I'm not, by the way, this is on me. I'm not promoting anything here. If you want to know more about where I stayed, you can certainly get in touch with me. And you do that by going to realrobrosenthal.com, where you will see down at the very end of your scrolling, there's a contact form. So if anybody has any questions, you can get me at realrobrosenthal.com. I mentioned to you in terms of where to stay, the two that I stayed at, which I have no problem recommending, is the Madinat Jumeirah, Madinat. Jumeirah is a Jumeirah, a big and fancy hotel group over there. And again, that's one where you're gonna their brunch. They just back in those days they did on Friday. Certainly also worth going to, because you are going to eat and drink like never before. And if you happen to stay at the Madinat over there, you walk over to the Burj Al Arab, another enormously tall building, hotel, residence, beautiful thing. You can also stay at the one and only on the Palm. Now the Palm are kind of like man-made islands. And the one and only is also, by the way, incredibly, I'm talking, this is super high-end stuff. This is not like, hey, this is not like Airbnb. One and only, the Palm, very high-end, very exclusive, very delicious, intimate. Everybody has kind of like their own host or butler. You know, this is what I'm talking about here. Arabian architecture, incredible landscape, multiple pools. What kind of pillow do you want? What you know what I'm saying? This is like fantastical. And then, of course, the more recent one that I stayed at here, this last week or the week before last, over the Atlantis, Atlantis, the Royal. First of all, it's to say that it's enormous is an understatement. I mean, it's huge, because half the building is residences and the other half are going to be, for hotel guests. Multiple restaurants, multiple pools, enormous gym, beach, rooftop, etc., and the breakfast buffet every single day, awesome. And so all good. They just opened, by the way. That's the other thing. The Royal Atlantis, the Royal, just opened like recently, like within months, and they paid Beyonce to come perform at the opening for $23 million. So that's the level of stuff that we're talking about here. You want to go to Dubai, you can go to the Atlantis Aquaventure Water Park. I mean, your kids will like that. You want to do some serious, like Arabian, like you want to go on an Arabian shopping spree. You could take a shuttle from these fancy hotels to what they call the Mall of the Emirates. 700 is probably more now. Shops and services ranging from high-end retailers to even, the French hypermarket Carrefour. Massive, and then you can go over there, maybe grab yourself a Shake Shack burger, and then, of course, you can go skiing. So you have the Mall of the Emirates, and then there's another mall, is the Dubai Mall. Again, glamorous, luxury retailers, an underwater zoo where you can go diving with the sharks. Crazy, right? You can, and I have gone to old Dubai, which is the juxtaposition, an alternative to the sleek modern malls. Old Dubai, you can go into the market over there, the spice market, the gold market, the textile market, the perfume market. Here's the thing, though, maybe I'm becoming even less patient. They come from a culture of bargaining, of negotiating, and as soon as you walk in, they're on top of you. when I mean, like, it's going to be people constantly, you want this, you want to try this, coming after you. And, you just basically have to ignore them and keep going. But the point is, if you haven't been to an old world souk, S-O-U-K, marketplace, certainly you take yourself to Old Dubai, and it's fun because even if you don't get spices and you don't buy, in any of the perfumes or the textiles or whatever, it's worth seeing from a cultural perspective. And you will also then walk about 10 feet and get yourself on a little Arab boat. What do they call those things? It's called I totally forget. It's gonna come back to me. You are going to get what do they call those little boats? Oh my God. Anyway, you get on a little boat, costs you 1 dirham. I'd say that would be the equivalent of about, I'm going to say like a dime. No, is it a dime? No, 25 cents. And it's in Abra, A-B-R-A, that's what it is. And it takes you 5 minutes across the river into kind of an old part of town. And you're going to get yourself in that part of town some of the, some of the food, some of the old world food. So I always go to a place called Al Ustad, Special Kebab. Al Ustad Special Kebab, I love, and I know that there's other places where you can go and have different kind of old world, Afghan, Lebanese, Moroccan, whatever. Al Ustad Special Kebab holds a special place in my heart, not only for the kebabs. The place is Iranian. The owners are Iranian. When you go in there, there's no reservation. It's kind of, diners, drive-ins, and dives type place. No tablecloths, linoleum tables shared by people. You either are lucky enough to sit immediately or you wait a little bit for a table. And eventually you're going to have Iranian food, which is to say that they bring to the table some onions and some cabbage and some peppers and some garlicky yogurt type sauce and some nice Iranian pita bread, hot, and maybe you order yourself a nice hummus, as they would like to say, and kebabs, chicken on skewers, grilled, delicious. And you eat I don't want to say like a pig, but you eat plenty of food. And you have more and more of this giant kind of Iranian bread hot out of the oven, and you put some of your chicken or lamb or beef on your bread, and maybe you throw on a little cabbage, a little garlicky sauce. And I'm telling you, man, it's such beautiful eating, and it's cheap. $7.50 for that meal that I just indicated per person. Grab yourself a soda or whatever. But here's the thing also, by the way, and I don't. It's really important that I mention this. I took my kids and my girls there at some point. My daughter's there, and I remember a feeling that I was not accustomed to when I sat down in there and looked around and realized we were the only, people like us, foreigners, tourists. Not tourists so much. I mean, this place is attended by every famous person in the world. Everybody knows about Al Ustad. It's been there since I want to say 79. So, it's been, this is where you go if you want to eat this kind of food in Dubai, in old Dubai. But when I was there, looking around and, got a lot of people that don't look like us. We're the only ones that look like us. And I remember feeling, a little bit, kind of protective, a little bit of a trepidation. And then on the way out, we met the owner, and this guy is just like classic, legendary, giant mustache, happy man, happy that you're there. The service, the hospitality, the food, but most importantly, the experience of taking yourself and your kids to a super far away foreign place and having such a lovely experience in a culture that is dramatically and different from your own. Just great. I mentioned the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. Make a reservation, go up to the top for cocktails or for dinner at the restaurant up there. I believe it's like an Armani hotel restaurant. It's on the 122nd floor, and it's just great. You do want to visit a mosque, and if I were to choose one, and I've been there, we took a ride to Abu Dhabi. and we went to the Grand Mosque there, and it's an interesting experience. You will take a tour, and you will take a ton of pictures, and you will take a ride to get there. I would say, worth it from my perspective. Of the different foods that you can get there, one of them is going to be Lebanese. And I mention this because I wanted to go have different. I always like to, explore the different cultural offerings. I found a place called M Sharif. M Sharif is a Lebanese a place where they do. You don't even order anything. They bring in at lunch. They bring 28 dishes to the table. 28. And then if you go for dinner, it's closer to like, I don't know, 35 or 37, whatever it is. It's crazy. But it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Because the food, they start off with the cold meze, mix. That's what, right? So there's tabbouleh, there's hummus. There's the fabulous fattoush salad. I'm just going to tell you this right now. Get yourself some fattoush, which I always think somebody's insulting me when they say fattoush. But the salad itself is great, and highlighted by like some pomegranate seeds in there and some crispy, pita croutons and whatever, and it's just lovely salad. Then they bring over, and I'm back here on M Sharif, the Lebanese feast. Then they bring over the hot meze. So there's going to be some hot lentil salad. There's going to be some kibbeh, which is they're like fried meatballs in a funny shape, cheese-filled, puff pastries, and then they start bringing out main courses. So you have lamb that's served with chickpeas, and onions and bulgur and pine nuts and all the different, the meats and the fishes. The only thing you can't get over there, and you won't get over there, is pork, because the Muslims don't eat the pork. And then after all that, they'll come over with dessert. So there's rice pudding, there's more pomegranate seeds, there's fried dough puffs that's topped with honey and bread pudding and mixed nuts and crazy cray, and delicious and fantastic, and just a great feast experience. And then, again, if you're going, you kind of have to do the desert safari. And ride a camel to dinner because to a tent, and smoke out of the what do they call that thing? They smoke out of the water pipes out there. Anyway, you're going to get on a camel. You're going to go to a camp out there in the middle of the desert. You look up in the sky with telescopes and see stars. You actually do eat some camel for dinner if you want. They have. I mean, you could taste it certainly. I know it's kind of weird to take a camel there and eat the camel, but it's not your camel that you're eating. It's just whatever. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack here. You want to go to the desert, and you want to get on a camel, and you want to go do that whole desert experience, because you're going to end up, in a Bedouin camp, and then there's going to be music and dance, and you're going to look at stars from your high-powered telescope, and you're going to have an Emirati meal. Oh, it's a shisha. That's what you're going to do. You're going to smoke from a shisha or a water pipe, and that is kind of a killer experience out there in the desert. And then I would say another thing to kind of keep in mind is what I said before. Once you're going 13, 14 hours to the other side of the world, it would only make sense, in my way of looking at things, that you extend it. I know people who stopped in Dubai on the way back from a trip that they had made in Africa. And I know myself that I took the 4-hour plane ride from Dubai to the Maldives. Fascinating place, unlike any I'd ever been to, and stayed at a fancy resort on one of the 1,100 islands in the Maldives, Como. It's called, the resort is Como in the Maldives. I believe they only have that one, but man, you stay at a place where you're literally on the water. Your room is on a dock, right? You walk out of bed in the morning, you can walk right into the ocean, and I did. So this is my way of saying that if you have interest in going to the other side of the world, whether that be somewhere in the Middle East or somewhere in Africa or somewhere in India or somewhere in between, right? Because both the Maldives as well as the Seychelles are located somewhere in the Indian Ocean, somewhere between India and Africa, and you're only 4 hours from that. Strategically, Dubai becomes a gateway, a transfer. So while it's great on its own, once you have gone that far, it follows that you may want to go somewhere else. And by the way, while you could take a 13 or 14-hour flight out of America to get directly to Dubai, you can also do what I did, which was I flew first to Europe, right? So you can, whether you go to Paris, or maybe you can do it out of Paris, you can do it out of London. Probably you can find any one of your frequent flyer airlines and use that as kind of a transfer point right there, a layover, if you will, or if you even lay over. I mean, you could lay over in Europe, or you can just hang out for a couple hours at the airport and then get on your next flight. So basically, look at it as kind of halfway, not really, but like let's say halfway. It's probably 8 hours over to get to Europe, 7 hours over to get to Europe, and then another 6 or 7 hours, depending on where you are in Europe, to get over to Dubai. So that's the other way to travel over there. Dubai, and that's the report. I mean, again, just to recap, fascinating what's going on over there. That you're at this modern, multicultural, completely modern metropolis with a great amount of wealth in the desert, on the sea, with access to the rest of the world, and a whole lot of luxury, and all the things that come with that, including some of these exotic kind of trips that you could make or experiences that you can have, including, of course, as I said, a lot of food offered to you from a lot of different parts of the world. And if I had more time, and I may end up going back, there are a number of restaurants that are now operating. It's become very much of a mecca for good food, not only from international but homegrown stuff as well too. So that's the situation from Dubai. As I mentioned also before, if you want to catch my podcast on the Maldives, you just have to go back into the archives, which I believe you can find on iHeartRadio, you can find on Spotify, you can find on Audible, Amazon. It's kind of wherever podcasts are distributed, whatever your Spreaker, whatever your favorite kind of podcast network is. And you can listen to that if you have questions.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Teflon Pan Man, Teflon Pan Man, stick on me.
That's episode 132, Dubai. And I will be back with you soon. And until then, remember this, life is short. So never waste a meal.
You're listening to Armed Radio Global, playing 70s, 80s, 90s hits and the ones you missed. And you can find us in all the usual places. Armed Radio Global.
I had a WhatsApp message from Joe Rocks. Hey, Trudy. Since our shows are back-to-back on Armed Radio Global every Thursday, why don't I join you and lie next to you on the couch to see what pops up? Oh, and did I tell you I like English muffins? Well, Joe, I'm not sure if you're being a very naughty boy, or if you just think something unexpected might happen and want me to provide breakfast.
Okay, well, the cheering is dying down now, and I think we have a new candidate, and we have a new favorite vegetable, which is asparagus. Let's go back to the stage.